Okay, I'm here with the one and only McClendon III. It's been a while, actually, since 2019.
Yes.
Someone pointed out today. How has it been, and how is it to be back here in this lovely little country?
Well, first off, I'm glad to be here this time of year, because usually when I'm here it's in November and it's freezing.
Yeah.
And I don't like the cold, so I'm glad to be here. But I'm really excited to be here because it has been almost 5 years since I've been back here, since right before the pandemic, and this is, as you know, my favorite seminar to do, so glad to be back here.
Great to have you back, and very exciting. And how has the last couple of years been for you? What have you been up to? Because life has changed a little bit,
yes,
I guess.
Yes, it has. I always tell people that COVID was a blessing.
Yeah.
For me, and for a lot of people, it was, I mean, obviously there were some tragedies and things, and I actually lost a few things through there, but the blessing side of it was that it got me off the road. I had been traveling so much before then, and I loved it, and I didn't realize how much I was away from my own home. That was one thing. The other thing was it brought me closer to my son because I was home more. But the other thing was it gave me the opportunity to condense everything that I do and be able to teach in a way that I teach people what I do, as well as do what we're doing now. So it was a good thing for me. It gave me some time to really work on myself and to work on my businesses and work on other things and grow my own food.
Grow your own food with your garden. If you ever want to watch what he's doing behind the scenes, go and watch his Instagram, because he shares a lot of the garden and those type of things.
I'm a little geek like that, and I love it. You know, it's just like it's like meditating to me. I do meditate, but that when you're in there, it's just you and the earth and and I grow things from seeds. So
that's really nice. It's not very American, I would say.
It's not. It's certainly not California and American.
Okay. Yeah. So life has changed, and you mentioned we spoke yesterday that you're traveling less nowadays. So that remains after COVID.
Yes.
Is that a good thing, or?
It is, because what it allows me to do is, number one, my main focus now is, I've always wanted to make sure that I help other people. That's my goal. That somebody helped me when I was at a time when I was in need, and I've got a lot of mentors and have the privilege of being around a lot of people that are very influential, and they've taught me and they've mentored me. And I realize that most people don't have that access, so I like to be that conduit for them to be able to share those things. However, teaching from stage, I can still do work with many people, but if I teach people to do what I do, then I get to reach more people. Then through me teaching them, then they go out and they get to be, I don't look for the credit, I don't need the credit, but I want more people to learn from other people other than me as well. Because some people, I'm not so arrogant as to assume that everybody wants to learn from me. So that way other people can learn as well.
Yeah, so you're talking about creating the ripple effect in a way. Cool. I know, fancy.
Wow, you are fancy.
But that's beautiful. And take me back in like your younger years. Did you expect to be doing what you're doing nowadays back then, or did you have a completely different image of your life ahead of you?
That is a really interesting question. As arrogant as this is going to sound, and I didn't find out till later, my mother actually used to tell me that I was going to do something special.
Oh, wow.
I don't ever remember her telling me that, but when I was older, she told me that I used to tell you all the time you were going to do something special. And so when I was quite young, I was an artist, and I still am. I like to draw, and I'm a musician and those types of things. Yeah, and so my vision of myself when I was older. I'm talking when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I would think that's what I'm going to do. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I was made for, and all those things.
Yeah.
But the reason I think it's an interesting question, Idelma, is that I didn't think anywhere past my 20s. I didn't think I was going to live past my 20s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I had some pretty dark things happen in my life when I was younger. And being in the U.S. and living during those times, there was a lot of racial prejudice and a lot of things going on like that. And I actually lost some friends, even at a young age, due to things like that. And I just never really thought I'd be older than that.
Wow.
Plus, during those times, and this is quite a long time ago, in the 70s, there was the Cold. Well, it was before the Cold War. There was always this conversation about nuclear war, and that everybody had a button and the world was going to blow up. So for some reason, I got it into my head that I wasn't going to live past there.
Wow.
So as a result, I lived quite a reckless life.
Those first 20 years.
Those first 20. Well, the past, I would say, from 15 to about 24 years old. So 8 or 9 years, I rode motorcycles like a madman and did crazy stuff, and then that's all I wanted to do was play music, and that was it. However, my father was very, very strict and very strong about education, so I stayed in school and I studied psychology and things like that. But in between there, I was like crazy, and it was just like I didn't really think I did. But then what happened when I got 23, 24 years old, I thought, hey, maybe I better rethink this, because maybe I might be around for a little bit longer. Yeah. And I started to take things a little bit more serious.
Okay. And so that was an important moment in your life, but I can still imagine that you never expected to be on a big stage with 10,000 people or more listening to you, applauding you.
Not at all.
Is that the image that you had back then?
No, that didn't transpire till, I want to say, 91. No, 92, 93. And the reason being was I did accomplish becoming a musician. I signed a recording contract with CBS Records in 1990, but I'd worked all of that time up until then to do that.
Yeah.
But I also stayed in school, and I got my first degree doing that, playing music, playing in bands, and doing all those things. And I lived in a small town, and I wanted to leave that town and move to Hollywood at the time, because that's where the place was in those days. If you were a musician, you'd go there.
Yeah.
And but I couldn't quit my job. I was afraid to quit my job, and I didn't know why. I just couldn't quit my job, even though I had to quit my job in order to move to play music. And I saw a television commercial about was a guy. His name is Robert Allen, and Robert Allen was one of the first people that taught people about flipping houses and real estate. You buy a house, and then you rent it out, and you buy another house, And I took his course, and I bought a bunch of houses. And but the reason was because I bought the houses because I wanted that to replace my income so I could quit my job. But I was still afraid to quit my job. So I had all the houses, I had my job, and I was being a musician, and I was also trying to have a relationship with my girlfriend, and my world was full. And I will honestly say that was the closest I came to a nervous breakdown.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't know what to do. I knew what I wanted to do, but I was afraid to, and I didn't know what was going on. And that's when I came into, and I also was still going to school too.
Oh, wow.
Even though I had graduated, I still would go to school. And very long story short, I started hearing about different things about NLP and different types of psychology, and that's when I met my now business partner, Tony Robbins, and I watched him use it, and I just saw him do it once, and when I saw him do that, I didn't know what he was doing, But on my way home from that seminar, I did it to myself. And by the time I got home, I was done. I quit my job. I actually knew I was going to quit the job. I didn't just walk in and say I quit. I gave notice that next morning. 2 weeks later, I was out of that job.
Immediate action, and that's it.
But it was because I got rid of my fear of
letting go.
Letting go of my job and fear of all that stuff.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I work a lot with entrepreneurs or the ones that are ready to take that next step.
Yeah.
But there are some similarities in their story that they are afraid to give up their security to go after their passion. What would your advice be if they are not into NLP or they don't really know those tools?
I would have 2 pieces of advice. Number 1, step back. And because when you step back, and when I say step back, it means to it's not necessarily meditating. It is be quiet for a moment and listen what goes on inside of your head. Because when you do, the brain starts to really tell you, and if you listen to it, it starts to tell you what's going on. It starts to tell you that you're afraid, and it starts to tell you that here's what the problem is, why you're not doing what you should do. Okay. And then when you're honest about it, then the second step is to find somebody to help you, whether it's a coach or a mentor or something, to help you take the steps to mitigate or get rid of that fear. Yeah. And it's not something that happens overnight. And I say that, even though I said just a little while ago I did it on my ride home, what I do know was it was all my years of learning about psychology and learning about the brain that allowed me to do that. Now, obviously, now there's shorter methods, and we teach that now. There's shorter methods, but still, it's not an overnight thing for people. No. It's something that that you work on it. And you and I were talking about this last night. Doesn't matter how far along you are in your life, you're still going to have things to work on. To this day, I still have things to work on.
Yeah, it's a never-ending story.
Never ending.
There's always something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about, because when you finally decided to become a specialist in NLP and all those things, and then I assume at some point you became also interested in becoming a speaker yourself or being on a stage. How was that? Because that's still from thinking that to actually doing that. That's also a major step.
Well, life has its way of handing you challenges when it's time for you to change. My mother got really sick, and my recording deal came to an end.
Okay.
And it was in that moment that I realized I had to do something different. Now, playing on what I had been doing in between there, I was playing music, but I was also, I love to help people. And I would see people that were going through what I was doing. Like, for example, people would come to me and they would ask me, what am I doing? My friends that I grew up with would come to me and they would go, what are you doing? You know, you're successful now, you've gotten all this stuff, you're doing this stuff, what are you doing? So I always wanted to help them. And when my mom got sick and I had to do something else. And I realized that my passion was helping people. And I'd already known people like Tony. And I'd also seen Les Brown, who is a dear, dear friend of mine now, but I didn't know him then. I came in one night and I saw him on television. And I saw him, we're talking to a crowd of 8,000 people. And I thought, wow, that's really great. Because it wasn't the fame. I didn't really care, and then still don't really care about the fame and anything like that. I was watching the people because the camera would pan to the people in the audience, and they were just alive and they were getting something. And I thought, and even though, but this was before I started doing it. That's when the seed was planted that, gosh, I have something valuable I can do, that I could teach people, and. Again, life has its way of throwing things in your way that can either stop you or you can figure a way around them and use them. And so my mom got sick. I had to take care of her. I lost my recording deal, and lots of things were happening that put me in a position that I had to do something else.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, well, even then, I didn't see myself on stage.
Okay.
I saw myself being behind the scenes, helping people.
Okay.
And training people, and that's what I started doing. And it was in Australia in '96. Yeah. I was at a seminar with Tony, and he couldn't do one day.
But you were there to assist?
But I was there. I was there to assist.
Okay.
And was training his trainers.
Uh-huh.
And he called me up at night and said, look, I've got to head back to the United States. Can you do tomorrow? And
wow.
I was scared, I'll be honest with you, because I'd never done anything like that.
I can imagine that you didn't, oh my.
Yeah. But I stepped up and did it. And since that day, 96, I've done every single UPW except for one. And the only one that I didn't do was because I didn't realize that my passport was expired. And I went to the airport to go to, I think it was to London, to come and do the event, and I couldn't leave.
Wow.
So that's the only one that I missed. But yeah.
Wow. And can you take us back to that moment? Because I can imagine Tony, it's a big speaker with a huge reputation, and people don't know you yet. So then all of a sudden you have to take over the second day. How did you prepare yourself for that moment?
I prepared all night. Oh, by the way, I didn't know I was going to do it till midnight the night before.
So very little time to
prepare. Very little time. And so he said, look, I'll send you the video cassettes. And I'd seen him do it several times.
Okay. So you were familiar with it?
I was familiar with it, but I wasn't familiar with how to be on stage. Now, I will say that because I was a musician, it wasn't stage fright like most people would have.
Okay, so that
what
helped.
It was the fear of not getting it right and remembering everything to do and to say. And it was in Australia, and I always joke around about it that Australia, they don't hold back. If they have something they're going to say it. And I walked out on stage. I was prepared, and I was ready to go. And I walked out and I go, "Hi, I'm Joseph, and I'll be with you today." And they started booing me.
Oh, wow.
And they started getting up and leaving Idelma.
And
they were telling me, they were yelling out, "We didn't come here to see you. Where's Tony? Where's Tony?" But fortunately, I knew about psychology. I knew about pattern interrupts. And I said, "Hey!" And it just came from inside me. And fortunately, I also, and this is what I teach people now, is preparation is everything. So it's not just preparation, reading your notes, knowing your material. It's preparing yourself. Mentally and emotionally, so that when you walk out there, you are in control. So no matter what comes your way, you don't get stuck and frozen.
Yeah.
And I also believe that you have everything you need inside of you. Most of us forget it. We've all done things where we've done something, and then later on we go, "Oh, I should have remembered to do that." And I still do that, but at the time, because you prepare yourself, and there's certain exercises and things that I do before I go on stage, what came through me was I knew that these people were upset, and when somebody's upset, you can either get upset with them, feel bad, or get scared or whatever, or you can step up. And I knew it was time to step up, so I interrupted their pattern, and I said, "Hey, stop where you are right now." And I had the microphone, right, so they had to listen to me. And I said, "I know what you're thinking. You're judging me right now. You're looking," and I remember them, to this day, I remember them standing there looking, these big guys, looking at me like, you're talking to me like this. And I said, "You guys are expecting a 6'7" white guy, and now you have a 5'9" black guy, and you're judging me. And you're looking at me and you're going, look at him. He's amazing. Oh my God." And I joked around, and they started laughing, and I said, "Look, I got it. Tony couldn't be here, but if you sit down, I promise you that you're going to get so much out of this day. And it was from that point, and they came back and they sat down and they all stayed, and that was it. Once that happened, then I got the bug. Then I realized that, wait a minute, it wasn't just about the material, it's about how you deliver the material as well. And so that was my introduction to it.
Yeah, important moment.
For the moment. But,
important moment.
Oh yeah, it was important. But you're right, it was for the moment. It was my introduction for the moment. Yeah. But UPWs were like 2 months in between. And so I thought, well, I got stuff that's valuable. I can teach stuff of my own. So I started doing events of my own. Now they were smaller, but I was always working. I was always doing it.
And practicing your skills and being a speaker, all these things. Great, what a nice story. And what would you say, because I guide a lot of entrepreneurs who want to be in front of the camera. And I realized in the 6 years that I've been doing this, that actually for a lot of people it's quite confronting to step up and be in front of the camera. All of a sudden they're aware of their voice, their looks, what they have to say, they question themselves. What's your advice to make that step and to feel comfortable?
Learn the process of these 3 things. Number 1, have content that solves the problems of your audience. And what that means is this. No matter what your audience is, now my audience is, I'm personal development. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you're working with a software company or whatever. Know, it's kind of like knowing your material, but know what their problems are that you go in there. So in other words, don't just go in and if you're working with a software company, don't just go in there and just say, okay, here's the problem. The problem is that your company needs to do this and this and this and this and this, and I'm going to show you how to do this and I'm going to show you how to do that. That's a speaker.
Okay.
But their problem is this. You don't know until you ask them, or whomever is who's ever hiring you to do that event. So I will always interview whomever I'm going to be speaking to. I'll interview the person that's bringing me in there, and I will ask ahead of time, okay, what is it that is the biggest challenge with your people? And for me, and I'll give them to you now, it's always one of 10 things, if not a combination. I call them the toxic 10. Procrastination, hesitation, fear of failure, fear of success, self-doubt, self-loathing, imposter syndrome, stress, overwhelm, or fear of rejection. And inevitably, it's one of those things, no matter what. And so that means you can solve the problems of your audience. So you don't have to approach it that way. You don't have to approach it saying, I know you guys procrastinate. But when you know what the problem is in their company, which is the reason they bring you in, it's like for speakers, if you're being hired to do an event, they're bringing you in because they want a result. There's lots of different types of speaking engagements. But they'll bring you in because it's an awards assembly or it's an awards ceremony and they want you to motivate the people, okay? Or they're bringing you in because they want you to help them with the problem of stagnation in their company. Or you have a product that you want to sell to people. Either way, either if you created your audience or they created your audience, find out what their biggest problem is. So
know your audience, basically.
Know your audience's problem.
Problems, indeed.
And it's important because when you say know your audience, it's a little different than just knowing that, okay, you have single mothers, you have this, you have that, and that's great. But if you know their problem, then the second thing is process to get a result right now. In other words, what a lot of speakers do, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus because there's some great speakers out there, is teach. And so if you just teach people things, then they're going to go, yeah, that's great, and that feels good in the moment, but you didn't change them. But if you get them to get if you get an aha, and you get a change right then and there, then what happens is that's what sticks with them.
Yeah.
Because people don't remember the content as much as they remember the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get them to experience feeling good or accomplishing something or doing something or whatever right there while you're there, then what happens is now you've gotten them to move the needle. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing is to always give them something to do after you leave. Because mm-hmm. if you don't, then it was just they got the experience and that was it, and they don't leave with it. But if you give them homework or something to do, then the likelihood of them following through, they're going to remember what it is. So what I always do, and I'll do it with this event here as well, is I do like a follow-up with them.
Yeah.
Is I'll come back and I'll say, and I'll tell them before I leave, here's your homework, here's what you're going to do, and in 10 days I'm going to call you up, and we're going to get on a Zoom call or something like that, and I'm going to do a follow-up with them.
Yeah.
So what you leave them with is some sort of accountability. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, there's a whole host of things. It's process. That way you have something that you can make a difference in their life now and later.
Great. But if we would translate that to video, so you create videos?
It's same with video.
The same principle?
Same thing. The same principle, and without going into, there is a process of presentation. Mm-hmm. And you'll see me do it here, and I mean, you've been around me for a while, you've seen me do it. I do the same thing every single time. Mm-hmm. There's steps to go through to get people to not just pay attention, but to get them to do what you ask them to do. Mm-hmm. You've been in seminars, there's 50,000 people, and I'll have them standing on their chairs, shaking their ass and doing things that they wouldn't normally do. Mm-hmm. And that's not because I'm so special, it's because there's a system of influence. Mm-hmm. Versus just speaking to them. Yeah. And so I do that same system every time, and they don't know you're doing it, and it's not persuasion, it's influence. It's giving them what they want. Mm-hmm. See, just like those Australians, they were like this. Mm-hmm. And I taught at the university, at UCLA, which is university in California, and I taught to engineers.
Yeah.
And your husband is an engineer, okay? So, mm-hmm. You know, I mean, per se. Mm-hmm. And engineers are very smart people. And they were certainly smarter than me. Mm-hmm. So they came in here like this. Who's this young guy going to teach me stuff? So I get them to come from this to this mm-hmm. in a very short amount of time through a process.
And that's what you want.
Yeah, and that's what you want. As soon as you get them out of that, then you can get through to them. But as long as they stay like this, you're not going to get through.
They're not open for what they're hearing. Okay, just a couple of final questions. But if people are afraid to step in front of the camera, mm-hmm. what's your advice?
Kind of what I said before. Either get somebody like yourself to help them get over that fear, mm-hmm. or at least mitigate it, make it smaller, mm-hmm. and then put themselves in a situation where they do it. I'll give you an example. The reason people are afraid, it's fear of rejection. Yeah. That's it, bottom line. It's the number one fear, mm-hmm. okay? You don't get better at it by not doing it. Mm-hmm. So I do processes like this. I would say this for videos. The first thing to do is go out for 5 days, go out into the world, and just look people in the eyes. Mm-hmm. Just do that. And you know me, it's just like, at the end of the day, reward yourself and go, I did that. Mm-hmm. Go for 5 days, like half hour a day. Go to a shopping mall or go somewhere and just look people in the eyes. And what happens is, your brain starts to go, what are they thinking about? They think I'm a creep or so on and so forth. But your brain starts to go crazy. But then you start to realize they don't care and nothing happened.
Mm-hmm. Nothing bad happened.
Yeah, nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, people will go, hi. And people will look at you back. Mm-hmm. Then you stick to the next level. Next level is you go for 5 days, you go, hello to people. You just say hi to people.
Yeah.
That's it. And what happens is that's practice of doing it. And it is also practice of getting rejected. But guess who the biggest rejecter is? Mm-hmm. Ourselves.
Always, yeah.
It's not them. Because people could care less.
Mm-hmm. They're too busy with themselves.
And then the last step is to get in front of the camera,
Yeah.
video yourself, whether it's just with your phone, and talk. And then watch it. But here's the deal. When you watch it, put a smile on your face and ask yourself these three questions, or these two questions. In this order, what was great about what I did?
Yeah.
And look and go, okay, well, I remembered everything, or at least I did it, and you find as many great things as you can. Then the second question is, what could I do to make it better? And those two questions are the opposite of what most people do. It's like people hate to see themselves.
Yeah.
And they hate to hear themselves. So they go, oh, this was terrible, this is terrible. But if you ask yourself the question, what was great, then your brain has to answer. And you have to look for things that are great. I looked good, you know, I remembered this stuff.
Yeah.
I did this. And then if you ask the next question, what could I do better? Then your brain goes, this was good that I did it. And I can do it better, I can do it better.
Yeah.
And you do that over and over again. And nowadays, video is cheap. You know, what does it cost you to throw your iPhone on?
Yeah.
And do it over and over again? Last thing I would say is everybody has such the opportunity to post on social media every day. Just go, hey, this is me, and I just want to say hello to you and share with you something I learned. You can do that over and over again. And I'll tell you this. So funny. I thought about this the other day. Remember when I said earlier that we all have stuff to work on? And it surprised me that hit me this way. I love to play bass guitar. I just love to. And so sometimes I'll make a song and I'll put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just for the fun of it. And it's just a silly song, just something that I made up. I don't care whether people like it or not. I just do it. So I made this song and I put it on there, and there was like 300 or 400 people that commented on it. And all of them said, this is great, and this is nice, and this is all this, and we love the song, it's unique and all this stuff. But one person said these words, sheesh, this is dreadful. And that was the one that stuck with me. I thought about it later, it was just like, why did they say this? Why did they say it? And I went, out of all of the 300 that said, the one that hit me was the one that did that. And then I caught myself and I went, isn't that interesting? One person out of that, and that's his opinion. Maybe it was dreadful for him. And because then, remember what I said? If you're quiet, if you step back and you look at, isn't that interesting that me at my stage in life would still be bothered by something like that? And it made me laugh at myself, and you get over it.
Yeah, I think human beings, that we only focus on the one that's negative. Okay, some final question, because I heard something about you might return next year to the Netherlands, to the rain, to the cold.
Well, again, I'd love to come this time of year again.
We're trying to make sure that's the same period.
Nice.
Well, if someone has never heard of A Factor and doesn't really know what to expect, if you would explain, give them a brief summary, what would you tell them?
The A Factor stands for the attraction factor. But here's the deal. When people think of the attraction, they think of the laws of attraction. You'll hear me do it. You've seen it a bunch of times. I ask people, what is attraction? Or what are the laws of attraction? They'll go, well, what I think about is what I bring about. And, my thoughts will this and so on and so forth. But they only think about one side of it. They think about attracting something to them. And it's all true stuff. But what they don't think about, and what we teach in here, is a two-way street. You can attract stuff all day long. But if you're not going towards it, then that's the other side. It's not you just attracting it towards you, it's you towards it. Because people want stuff, but they feel like they don't deserve it, or they can't do it, or whatever goes in the way, and then they sabotage. That's why there's that toxic 10. So this event is about the attraction from both sides. It's magnetism. How you magnetize what you want, and how you magnetize yourself, so you're both moving towards each other. And the process of how to do that, that's step number one, or that's the first part of it. The second thing is emotional management. I call it emotional mechanics. For you to feel like you can do it, so you believe that you can do it, because the steps are simple. Knowing what you want mixed with belief mixed with emotion, that's what causes magnetism.
Yeah.
Human magnetism. So there's that. So there is the laws of magnetism, attraction, if you will. There is emotional mechanics. So you learn how to have the emotion that you need to cause that electromagnetic energy to happen and cause you to magnetize something. And then the third thing is to have the certainty in yourself that you can do it, that identity. So you believe in yourself. Because a lot of people are afraid and they have that thing going on inside. There's something wrong with me, or I'm not good enough. I'm too fat. I'm too black. I'm too white. I'm too Dutch. I'm too whatever.
So many reasons.
Yeah, so many reasons. So you got to replace that with something else. So that's what we do at the A Factor.
Yeah, amazing. So thank you so much for taking this time. We're about to go on stage in like 20 minutes. So make sure to watch this interview and to check the details about next year's events. It's a joy to be around this guy and learn from him. Thank you so much.
You as well, and thank you. And I'll see you next year
at the A Factor.